Hey everyone, and welcome to FogCutter Live. I'm Mike Curtis here with Preston James, founder of Trader's Edge Network. We got a ton to talk about today, like usual. But Preston, say hello, and we'll start diving in here.
Yeah, good morning. We're always excited about these first of the week, these Monday FogCutter Lives, and we've got some killer content for this one.
Yeah, we're excited. It kind of swerved in out of nowhere. This morning I was digging in, looking at a few things, and I pulled up just a chart of the Nasdaq looking back the last 15 years or so. And Preston, the thought really came to me from something you'd heard on the Bitcoin front from your Sohn conference. Maybe you could color that up a little bit, and then we could talk some Nasdaq here.
Yeah, back in May, I was in New York City. I got a chance to have a pretty intimate encounter with the blockchain.com founder. Just one of the highlights I remembered is how because he's had a front row seat of Bitcoin from the get go, and they handle like 8% of all Bitcoin traffic. And he just had made mention that it really had stalled out at this whole number of 10,000. And this is as the adoption was happening and so forth, that for whatever reason, that was a barrier, that whole number of 10,000. And then as it has risen to 1,000, there's been a real barrier at 100,000 until just recently, where we're probably now going to another whole number, as now Bitcoin is institution driven and pretty much a real thing compared to when they started. A teeny tiny side note was he's actually from West Virginia, and his dad was a blue collar miner in West Virginia. And his dad would joke with his friends, like his friends would say, "Oh yeah, his son, he's the one trying to invent a new form of money." Like every teenager, that's their dream, right? And they laughed it off. Anyway, now Bitcoin's real.
Yeah. And that's that whole round number. It's not anything new. Stocks tend to struggle at the $100 mark, right? And you see it's kind of this new paradigm shift, right? Where,
True.
oh, wow, people remember it at 70, 80, and now they're seeing these triple digit, the stocks at 100. And it can be these resistance levels. And that's something I'd have in the back of my brain. And then more recently, when you brought that up about Bitcoin and seeing some of the crypto surge that we've seen over the last week, but it pulled me into the Nasdaq. So maybe we could throw that that little image up on the screen here. And I went back and I just started looking. So this is a monthly chart of the Nasdaq. So every candlestick you see here represents 1 month. So we've got, how many 15, 18 years on the screen here. But what I really wanted to illustrate is how the Nasdaq has stalled at some of these whole round numbers as well. So that first red line I put on there is that $5,000 mark, where the Nasdaq just struggled. But the exciting thing is, once it cleared that resistance, once it cleared that whole round number, you can see that first green arrow there. We just saw a couple year bull market unfold. And it doesn't mean it's just going to go straight up. Of course not. There's going to be pullbacks and stalls and, all that comes with it along the way. But then we saw it at 10,000. That second red line right there came up and it stalled again. That whole round number turned into a couple month long correction. But once we cleared that yet again, you see that second green arrow, the market just covered a ton of ground up to 15,000, where it kind of stalled in that neighborhood again. And then we, of course, hit that bear market of 2022. Took a while to pull out of it. But when we cleared that level, that $15,000 level, and again, it took, 2 years to get back to that point. But once we cleared it, we kind of surged to that next whole round number that we just hit January, February of this year, 2025. And once it got right up to that 20,000 level, we ran into again, that stall, that pullback. And then, of course, the tariff news hit. And we just now, as I woke up this morning and I saw the Nasdaq at 21,000, and I'm like, wow, that's just a new number in the world. Nasdaq over 21,000. It made me pull up this chart, and we started, Preston and I were just getting excited talking about this, that this is probably setting off a new bull market here, where in that next whole round number would be 25,000, the Nasdaq at 25,000. So pretty exciting, just paradigm shift of we're now clearing this new 20,000 number for the Nasdaq. Mm-hmm. And we saw some resistance like we've seen at all these whole round numbers. And we're just now kind of clearing out of that. And Preston, what are some of the other thoughts that you had as you kind of peeked at this?
I just remember in the early part of my exposure to the market back in the early 90s. And I just remember the 2,000 point barrier on the Nasdaq, and how it was just like, oh, the Nasdaq could be 2,000. Really? Nasdaq 2,000? So we could probably go back and show that as well. I like this more recent, kind of discovery that you've got up on the screen. But I just remember, and I read 1,000 was a barrier as well. But I remember 2,000 for some reason, it had just gone to the unthinkable, and I remember it staying there. It would seem like it could it ever pass it, It's just kind of funny going back that, because the Nasdaq for the longest time was a triple digit thing. And, the 1,000 level is a 4-digit. The 2 is just like, oh my gosh, if we can pass this, what's the world turning into? And the other little thing I'll lay over at Mike is, I'm always really fascinated by the power of an idea whose time has come.
Right.
And something that could be fall into that is all these phones that everyone has a phone. Everyone's got a glass rectangle. And there was one time that we didn't have a glass rectangle, and now we do have a glass rectangle. And you couldn't have stopped it. Countries warring against each other couldn't stop it. Diseases, earthquakes, acts of Congress. There's no force that could have stopped that. There's no force that could have stopped the internet before that. I think about funny things on the side like pickleball. How could pickleball have been stopped? There's just something that happens and it spreads. And I mean, pickleball is not even investable, but currently the Homer Simpson would have to agree and nod his head to say, if you said the current idea whose time has come is AI,
no doubt,
that would be something Homer Simpson would have to agree with. And it's unfolding. And so all to say, and we're done with our big bear market of 2022. You've just pointed that out. Recently, we've had our yearly correction that we average. And so think of all this. We're done with our correction. We don't have a bear market for a while. If we're leaning on history, those happen once a decade. So we've got pretty much a runway here, plus this tangible, whatever it is, this idea whose time has come is AI, as it's unfolding.
Is a major tailwind, right?
Fasten your seatbelt. We're heading to 25,000. Like you said, not every single day it goes up. That's ridiculous. Of course not.
Right.
But psychologically passing 20,000, if we're going back, what we're seeing here, next stop 25,000, might poke its head against that a few times, but
yeah. And coming out of that correction, like you said, seeing a follow-through day, seeing the strength, taking out that previous high, these are all the makings of a new bull market run, right? Like we're just seeing all these different factors lining up. So again, doesn't mean there's not going to be some headwinds and, some pullbacks along the way. But if you really zoom out and you're looking at this just longer term perspective, there's a lot of factors pointing to just a very healthy, strong bull market right here.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. It's go time for stocks. We've been saying it. We've been pounding the table. I have this thing on the table. A member of ours made it for us. I mean, He said, if you want to really be serious, look at this hand design. You want to be, and he give a little target for it too. He's like, if you really want to pound the table, there you go. That's what it is.
There you go. So yeah, we've been trading. We're pretty fully invested. We've been adding new positions. The money press has been strong. Some directional trades have been going well. So we're really catching the momentum of this bull market. So a few other factors that could really fuel that is we're obviously coming into, we mentioned this last week, that earnings season is upon us. It's really starting to kick off. There's a few big ones this week. Alphabet, Google is Wednesday, along with Tesla. So I know, Preston, we'll probably have a little more discussion about earnings season and how we handle different positions heading into earnings next week, because really that's like we're in the thick of it next week, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
Yes. And ServiceNow is another one to point out this week.
right.
Yeah. Google and Tesla. I mean, these are some of the companies that are leading the world.
Mm-hmm.
The world's eyeballs are on them. These are big time news announcement these days.
Yeah, and Verizon is getting a bid today on some good earnings news. I think I saw an article that 82% so far of companies that have reported earnings are beating expectations. Coca-Cola's tomorrow, so that's also another biggie. But yeah, like we said, just starting earnings seasons. Keep an eye on those. If you have open positions, know your earnings dates. Go start. Take 5-10 minutes. Start writing those down on a sticky note. Whatever you need to do. But we'll have a little more earnings discussion next week in our FogCutter.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add, Mike, is last earnings season we were right in the middle of all the tariff uncertainty,
Right.
and where a lot of companies were not saying anything for forward guidance.
Right.
And it further added to the confusion. I get it. What are you supposed to say to the world when everything was so touch and go? And while there's still some of that, I see a lot more companies announcing guidance and in the investing public finding a relief in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be more of a theme as this earnings season unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, Preston, you'd kind of had your eye on a couple stocks, outside of the companies reporting earnings, maybe a few that you wanted to mention just that are interesting to keep an eye on, maybe
Yeah,
add to a watch list.
absolutely. One that's firmly in the AI space. It's a newer, publicly traded company, newer meaning several years now. So it went public probably during the bear market that we had, and you never can time that if you're a publicly traded company. You go public and do your thing, but very interesting action today in ticker ALAB, ALAB. And it's got earnings actually coming up in August 5th, but there's been a lot of call option volume. There's no real news today, but it's up on big volume. And I love how the patterns unfolding and shaping up on this bad boy. So we're getting too close to earnings where you really can't trade it right now, in my opinion. You can do whatever you want, but I'm very interested in how the earnings unfold August 5th. And they now have weekly options, ALAB. Again, AI tailwinds right in the middle of all that.
Right.
Super exciting. CRISPR, CRSP, with
Mm-hmm.
all the gene editing and splicing and how AI is matching with all that. They're making some impressive moves right now. And my eyes on that. CRISPR. And I also think it's very interesting, Berkshire Hathaway, going back to how Warren Buffett has stepped down. BRK, especially the B shares, B as in boy, BRK-B or .B, wherever that is on your platform. There's been a real sell-off, understandably so, with Mr. Buffett stepping aside
Mm-hmm.
and having the new reins on that. But it's still the same Berkshire Hathaway assets, and I think they're starting to turn. And I just think if we're going to be maybe going to this next level that we're talking about,
Right.
there's nothing more American apple pie than Berkshire Hathaway, and they've got weekly options. I just think it's interesting to start taking a look at it about now.
Yeah, that's dropped about 10% from the
Mm-hmm.
high,
Mm-hmm.
a little over 10%. So
They've got
yeah,
100 billion in cash that's ready to be deployed. I mean, this one's lean and mean, and
yeah. And so something like that that's been on a couple month of kind of this, shorter term downtrend, like longer term, it's just been a performer, obviously. But you see a shorter term downtrend like this, Preston. Is there something specifically you kind of wait for before you say, okay, I've been watching it, I've been waiting, I've been watching, I've been waiting it. Now it's time. Let's start maybe getting a little bit of an investment going on this, whether it's a money press or buying some shares or directional calls. Is there anything specific that you're kind of watching for before you say, all right, now's the time?
well, most of the time I wait for kind of what we like to lean on our setups here: a surprise factor setup, a
Mm-hmm.
sunrise demise, a relative high, kind of fun things like that. But Berkshire is just so in rarefied air, just proven just over the decades, that really what I wait for on something like this is I know it's done going down when it starts to go up. And
Right.
it could be as simple as that.
Yep, definitely.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, some fun things to look at there as far as a few stocks to keep your eye on. Hopefully, just seeing some of that analysis on the Nasdaq whole round numbers, and you can go do the same thing for the Dow. You could do the same thing for the S&P 500. Nasdaq was one that just caught my eye with that 21,000 as it just kind of crested above that. So that was the one we just wanted to share today.
And
But
Mike,
Preston,
I want to add to that
yeah,
this is going to be the time too. And they were out, the voices were out at the 2000 level and the 10,000. How can this be? You're going to hear more voices and more uh, news items. Hey, secret hedge fund trader thinks the biggest one's right around the corner. The biggest market crash now ever. I mean, this is the time when more derogatory tone and voices will come out. So if I've always just said, if you're in this day and age, if you want to plug in to some narrative going on inside of you, you're going to find validation
right.
almost wherever you look. So the the voices will probably be more amplified now on how crappy the market's about to do, and just to be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you'll hear those voices. I mean, we've covered so much ground in the last couple of weeks. Hey, we're due for a pullback. I saw a headline, some trader, one of the big, investment banks. I hope there's a pullback. I hope so you start hearing some of that. So yeah, there's a lot of wisdom to what you said in that, Preston.
And
So
we might get a pullback, but
yeah,
I'm just saying the big dire warnings, like,
absolutely.
hey, take everything out, put it under your mattress, buy gold. This one's it. It's
Right.
right. It's everything's cooking up just right. It's right around the corner. Again, if
Definitely.
you can believe what you want to believe, but those voices will be a higher volume, in my opinion, right now.
Definitely. And even thinking about NASDAQ climbing, we just cleared that 20,000, climbing to that 25,000. That's only a 25% increase, right? So it's, um, if you think that's going to happen over the next 2-3 years, that's not a crazy, insane number to think, oh, we're going to cover,
Right.
12, 13% per year over the next 2 years. So, I mean, that's a big sounding number. But percent growth, that's pretty reasonable with just kind of an average bull market run. So
Good
a
point.
lot of good things are setting up there. So Preston, we covered a lot of ground. We like to highlight a client. This one came in through our Wow Insider membership where we have some different milestones. John C. just joined our $250 profit club. So one of the initial milestones, we want you to kind of check your knowledge. There's one milestone. You can kind of get a feel of how you're understanding options in the money press and some basics. Another milestone is placing that first live trade, which can be scary for some people. And we're here to just guide you through all that, help you understand it. And then that next milestone after that is just a $250 profit club. So this is what John sent in. He'd actually started doing some mentoring with one of our Trader's Edge mentors, Brandon, who's just amazing. And he said he was paper trading for the first couple of months. And he said, I finally decided to go live because after all, isn't that the whole idea, the whole point? Totally. He said he was scared, nervous, all of that. Totally normal, natural when you're placing that first live trade. He said, didn't feel like I really understood what I was doing yet, but still knew enough through Brandon's guidance, the information he'd received from Trader's Edge, through his study, he said, to pull the trigger. He said, the win felt great. It gave me confidence. I know that even though it was a small win, it's going to lead to great things. So he said his whole goal is to just generate some significant revenue stream just sitting at home in his office. So he's continuing on. He said, thanks for the help, guys. So really cool. John C. from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Attaboy, John.
Club. So big shout out to John. We love hearing that. Again, he's part of our Wow Insider membership where he gets to be plugged in to just more training, more information. But really what people love about our Insider membership is they get to just see some of your trades, Preston. If you're starting a new money press, if you're adjusting, if you're starting a new position, because most people are busy, right? They're plugging in their physicians or they have a 9 to 5 or some job that they're trying to work investing into that busy schedule. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we built a lot of our strategies around. We don't have to be glued to the screen. We try to keep it simple, and you can really fit your trading and investing around your lifestyle. And just seeing some of your positions kind of float in, they can assess them for themselves and decide if they want to take some of those trades is just a great shortcut. So maybe we could throw the URL on the screen. If they want to check out our Wow Insider membership, it's just a great way to tap into a fun community of traders, learn options, learn the money press, have some shortcuts of just trade ideas coming your way is pretty powerful.
I was going to add to that. I can't. That's very well said.
Yeah. So join wowinsider.com. That's a place you can go check out more, see if you want to look into that. Just a fun way to continue down your investing and trading journey. So Preston, I think that's kind of what we got for today. Anything else in closing before we sign this one off?
I think some powerful stuff there, Mike. Great job on uncovering those little gems about the Nasdaq stopping at these big whole numbers. Really is what that is.
For sure.
And I think
fun stuff. Yep, thanks for the insight on some of those the stocks and tickers that you shared, Preston. Fun to keep an eye on those. I mean, we'll sign this one off until next week. We'll have a lot more earnings discussion coming your way, and the fun never stops here on FogCutter Live. So have a great week, and we'll see everyone next Monday.
Yeah, I can't wait for next week already. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, P.